It is time for the Ice Tribe banner. We saw the silhouettes last night. It looked like Nils and Felicia, so I'm expecting some fates and some blazing blades. Let's jump in. Okay, up first is Felicia. Not surprised there. She looks cute. I like it. She's an axe cav. Okay. I like the weapon a lot. Okay, so we have Ice Tribe. Axe, this has slaying, has adaptive damage, and then if you're on the team with your support partner at start of turn, you'll grant the dragon neutralization effect to them. So they'll essentially, if they're a dragon, they're no longer weak to dragon's effects, which is pretty cool. And then also, if you are not on a team with your support partner, you'll target the ally within 3 spaces with the highest resistance and get them that effect instead. Then, any allies within 3 spaces who have that neutralized dragon effect will get speed and res +5 during combat. They'll get to have a dual speed and resistance effect. But most importantly, this is the thing that actually makes Felicia really interesting. They get neutralized effects that prevent those allies counterattacks. So you get NCD. So we finally have an NCD support. It's a very weird setup of unit, but either way, this is really powerful. This is tied to support partners, so that is something to consider, because it doesn't mean that usually you're only able to hit 1 unit with it. Then also, if she initiates combat, or if there's an ally within 3 spaces with that dragon effect, she's going to get a bonus to her attack speed and defense and res equal to 5 plus 15 of her speed at start of combat. She'll get 20% true damage, but not with AoEs. She'll get 50% damage reduction halving, and she gets the reduced damage from the foe's first attack by 40%, and it is brave damage reduction. We then have attack speed excel, which is some excellent fodder. We have speed res near trace force, so it's good to see that into the game. It's pretty interesting that it is on her, mostly because she has adaptive damage, of course, but still very interesting. And then odd speed wave 4, which I'm pretty excited about because I think the skill is really good and kind of being slept on. Okay, so what is Felicia's main role she's really trying to do? She's mostly a support unit. She can definitely be like a nuker. She has like that adaptive damage, which is pretty nice, and she gets like all the key things you need, right? Like damage reduction halving and like some survivability and stuff like that, and a ton of stats, right? Even that true damage as well. So she obviously has the key effects she needs to be a nuke, but I'm going to say that right now the main thing she's going to be doing in the meta is really being a support unit. Now, she's a really interesting support unit because she really wants to like pair up with dragons to get the full effect, right? You want to be able to take away that dragon weakness, which is big because there are a lot of like good dragons in the current meta, like Valentine's Myrrh and stuff like that, right? And so being able to take away that dragon weakness is a big deal. Maybe Brave Tiki, right? Like maybe this is like a key support for her, but being able to give out NCD is the big thing. And we were talking about this right before CYL, that Alphonse really wanted a support unit who could give him NCD. So I think this is gonna be a great unit for that. It's just a good unit to have overall. I don't know about anything really outside that support being meta, but that support itself is very, very good. Now, when it comes to game modes where you're going to really see Felicia, I think the main place is going to be Ether Raid's offense. That's really where you're trying to do the Omni-taking strat, and like NCD is really going to help you out a ton there. When it comes to other game modes, I don't really see her being used on Ether Raid's defense, as like the effects she gives aren't that like amazing for defense, and the same could be said for like SD. You really need like 4 movement for a melee cav. Either way, I'm pretty interested with this unit. NCD is something we've been looking for a very long time, so let's go ahead and move on to our next unit. Okay. Oh, what? This is not what I was expecting at all. Actually, it kind of makes sense, though. Like, they are from an Ice Tribe, right? So we have Thea with an ult. I like the sword. We have Ilian Frostblade, her PRF weapon. This is slaying at start of turn. If she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she's going to grant triangle attack and Canto 1 to herself and allies within 2 spaces. So we do have that triangle attack coming back like we did have on Bridal Catcher. The big difference is instead of having teleportation attack alongside triangle attack, we're getting Canto instead. And then also, if she initiates combat or if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she's going to get a bonus to all of her stats equal to 5, plus the number of times she's been increased with Dragon Flowers times 2, a max of 15 all stats. She's going to get 50% damage reduction halving. She gets a flat damage reduction of 7 against the foe's first attack, and it is brave. And lastly, she gets special acceleration. We then also have Iceberg, Pegasus Rift, which is some new powerful fodder. But then we have the new C skill, Air Orders 4. What this essentially does is at start of turn, if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she's going to give out a visible attack and speed +6, the charge bonus effect, and a new stats effect to herself and any flying allies, where they get the self-warping effect like of aerial maneuvers, where they can teleport to any space within 2 spaces of any ally. So pretty interesting effect to see this as like a status instead of just being like tied to like Guidance 4 or like Sword Guidance 4, I guess technically more often. It is obviously a pretty powerful effect. The fact that it's tied to herself and flying allies definitely holds it back, but it kind of makes sense because it is air orders. So I don't think this is like actually all that insane, because you can kind of just use like Soaring Guidance and you're getting the similar effect. Obviously you're not getting the charge, which is a big deal, but you do get like offensive no follow-up, which is really good as well. So Overall, when it comes to Thea, what is she trying to do? Her main role is really a support unit. She's trying to offer like really good mobility support and then obviously triangle attack as well. Her triangle attack is like tiny bit better than Catcher's in my opinion, because you don't really need the like space warping with Catria, because typically you're running like guidance or soaring guidance or something like that, right? So it's nice, but it's nothing like amazing. And so I think them giving Canto 1 instead is way better. But overall, I don't think this is like a great unit you need to pull. She's not like majorly better than Catria in my opinion. If you already have Catria, you're pretty set already. So when it comes to game modes, where can you really see Thea being used? Maybe you can see her using Ether Raid's defense, but like Catria balls is falling off pretty hard, so probably not. And then outside of that, maybe Summer Duels as well. She can play that frontline melee unit who is just trying to be kind of bulky and then offering that mobility support. Either way, I think she will be a good unit, but I don't think she's going to be like anything insane. Definitely not the impact Catcher once had. Oh, there's Flora. Okay, so Flora's not the harmonic. And this means Nils is probably the free unit. So we have a Cav Dagger Flora. She looks cute. I was expecting an armor, I'm not going to lie. She's a demote? No way, they demoted Flora. I'm actually floored. I did not expect Flora to be the one that gets screwed over. I thought she's being the main star of the banner, but I guess that's not the case. She is the demote. So we have Ice Dagger Plus. This has adaptive damage, and then if she initiates combat, or if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she'll get +5 all the stats during combat. She'll get guaranteed follow-up attack, and she'll get to reduce the percentage of foes non-special damage reduction, so she gets damage reduction halving. It's cool to have that on like an inheritable dagger. It's not bad, but I don't think it's really all that insane either. Overall, I think this is like a kind of mid-inheritable weapon. Nothing really going to be crazy you're going to be going for. And when it comes to other fodder, attack versus catch is pretty mid. Glacius isn't great. Disarm Trap 3 is like the only thing you'll be really going for here. And even then, you're like, it's not the biggest skill like you're like trying to aim for. So overall, I don't think her fodder is all that great. But she does look really nice. So at least there's that. Let's move on to the final hero of the banner, the big star of the banner. Let's see who it's going to be. Okay. Wait, what? You're kidding me. Please don't. No, my God, you're kidding me right now. They really gave Fjorm another ult. This is crazy to me. So we saw Nils. Nils was like the demote unit. So I assumed Ninian would be here, right? That makes sense. But instead we're going to throw in an OC character, and it's Fjorm yet again. So now Fjorm has another ult. Like, she doesn't have enough. It's kind of crazy. Like, she's like getting up to like the Camilla levels of ult. That's nuts. She looks cute. I mean, Niffle, wow, geez, that dress, holy crap. But I guess let's see what she does. She is a Lance Armor. Okay, so we have a preference weapon, Ice Crystal Spear. This has Slaying, and if the foe initiates combat or the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, you're going to get all stats equal to 5 plus X, where X is the number of allies within 3 spaces, max up plus 14 all stats, pretty typical there. You're going to get 20% flat damage reduction based off your speed, but does not work with AoEs. You get to neutralize your own penalties, which is nice. You get full no follow-up, and then whenever she deals damage, she'll also heal 7 HP. Now the big thing, of course, is that if you are fighting against a ranged foe, you get NCD as well, which is kind of like the signature effect we saw on Ascended Fjorm a while back, right? So pretty powerful effect there. We then have our new preference special, Dual Ice Mirrors. It's a 2 cooldown special. When special triggers, if the foe is 2 spaces away from the unit, so if it's a ranged unit, you get a reduced damage from the foe's attack by 40%. And then after the special triggers, units' next attack will do that Ice Mirror effect, being equal to the total damage reduced by any source. So if you're using like some other kind of damage reduction, you're going to do that as well. And it's a minimum of 40% of her resistance. And neutralizes foes, reduces damage by X% effects, so she gets damage reduction piercing, which is a big deal. And then lastly, she still has that distant counter effect that she had on Summer Fjorm as well. So overall, we have a pretty powerful preference special here. The one thing I will say that I kind of complained about again with Summer Fjorm was that it only works against ranged units. I really wish this was just a more universal effect and it was just 40% damage reduction against any foe, right? Like, I don't know why they refuse to do that. It wouldn't be that big of a difference. But other than that, it is a pretty powerful special. We then have Deluge Boost. This is just going to be the HP plus 5, but instead of like some other stats, you're going to get Speed and Resistance plus 7 and Guard. So cool to see this one add to the pool as well. Just we have more options of what stats you want on that unit. We then have a new Tier 4 B skill, Shield Fighter. And no, this is not Hardy Fighter 4, which I was horrified of, but it's really strong still. This inflicts attack speed -4 on the foe during combat, and if the foe is using an offensive special, you're going to trigger the following effects during combat. You're going to get a special jump of 1 before the foe's first attack, and then if they have a Brave weapon, it will reactivate between attacks. So just like Legendary Female Corn, you'll be able to have your special up on both hits, which is really powerful. It's one of the reasons why Legendary Female Corn is so good right now. It's a very good effect. And then also, you'll also get special jump -1 before the foe's first follow-up attack as well. So it's pretty much just making it so that her special is always ready and you're always being able to reduce that range damage. But once again, this is only going to be with range damage if you are using her PRF special, though if you're using a different special, then that could be the case where it could be really strong as well. So that's something interesting to think about. And then if the foe is using a defensive special and that special has like damage reduction piercing, your special will actually trigger twice. So you do have like kind of like that Hardy Fighter 4 effect in there again. But it is a bit different, right? Because it does have that extra requirement on it. So that is something interesting. We'll have to see how this exactly works if, like, let's say Special Spiral 4 will activate this as well. Because the special itself doesn't have damage reduction piercing, but the unit gets it based off Special Spiral 4. So we'll have to see how that interaction ends up working. Either way, it's a very powerful effect, very nice. And she gets flat damage reduction. You'll get 14 flat damage reduction instead of just 7, which is really good. And because this is always charging, right? It's charging between each attack essentially. It's really, really strong. Like it's gonna allow you to essentially just like have flat damage reduction all the time. And if it's constantly triggering twice, you're gonna be taking a lot less damage. So in a lot of ways, this is like a Hardy Fighter upgrade or like a side grade kind of. It doesn't have all the same effects. It doesn't have like the pre-charging of defensive specials like Hardy Fighter does. It doesn't have the defensive null follow-up that Hardy Fighter does. But it does work better in the sense that it has special jump, meaning you're less weak to scal effects. So very nice there. I think this is overall a really powerful skill. We're going to have to do testing to see just how good it really is without like it being on Fjorm herself, right? Seeing who else can really use it effectively, because you really want like either a 2 cooldown special or something like that, right? Because you only get a special jump 1. And so you really want to make it so that your special is always getting charged. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up working out. And then lastly, she has attack speed, fire save 3. So she's obviously going to be a speed stacking armor as well. So now we have 2 of those when it comes to Lance armors. We have Amelia and now Fjorm as well. Okay, and then we have our duo skill. One of the big things, of course, applies Divine Vein Eyes to unit space and spaces within 2 spaces of unit for 2 turns. Excludes spaces occupied by a foe, destructible terrain other than Divine Vein Eyes, and warp spaces in rival domains. And so here it is. We were kind of expecting to see this, that we were going to get more applications of Divine Vein Ice. Now, obviously, this isn't the same as Brave Robin's. Brave Robin's is much more on demand, and it also happens on each raid's defense by having to click a button, so that is a bigger deal. It's much more easy to apply. But either way, this is a very powerful effect, and being able to do this on, like, say, Summoner Duels or something like that, and just being able to shut down avenues for the foe to attack is really nice. The other thing, of course, too, is that it is a much bigger radius than Brave Robin's. Brave Robin's is only on spaces 2 spaces away exactly, so it kind of keeps ranged foes from coming in. This one just makes like a giant ice wall, so like it can just completely shut off the entire area, and because your allies can still move through it, it makes it so that you have a lot more mobility while your foes really don't. It's kind of interesting. The other thing I will bring up, like when we're coming down to the roles and like what game mode she's going to be in, one of the big things I see with this Fjorm, the same thing with Summer Fjorm, is that she's probably going to be kind of weak to melee units because a lot of her effects don't activate against melee units, right? Like she doesn't get the NCD, she doesn't get the damage reduction on her special, and so having this duo skill does kind of help a lot against that kind of situation, like units against, like, let's say Brave Felix, right, who really wants to rush in there and kill you. Being able to just shove ice everywhere means that Brave Felix really can't approach you realistically. I guess he could like come in and break an ice and break another ice, but by then he can't get in, right? He can't even Celica ring in, so that's something to consider as well. So I do think this skill is very powerful. And the other really thing that's really crazy about this is, unlike, let's say, Brave Robin's Ice, where it only lasts 1 turn, this ice lasts 2 turns. So this could be like a really big stalling tactic for something like Summoner Duels, right? You kind of go in, you set up your team, and one of the ways you can protect yourself is by popping this duo skill, let's say on turn 1. And what that lets you do is like get your safe set up, right? Like you can set up your whole opening and then be able to engage on like even as early as turn 2, because the ice doesn't affect you, but it protects you from the enemy, which is a big deal. So I think this duo skill is really, really powerful overall. It definitely isn't like the conventional type of powerful, like let's say something like duo doors, but it's much more in a strategic sense, and learning how to use it correctly is going to really be able to sign of like how skillful you are as a player, because I can definitely see people using this at the wrong time and it does nothing, but if you use it at the right time, you can completely dominate your enemies. So very scary duo skill there. And so when it comes to roles, what is Fjorm doing? She is a tank. That's her main role 100%. She does offer some support with her duo skill, but mostly she just wants to tank. Unlike a unit like Valentine's Myrrh or like Amelia, I don't think she's gonna be that good against melee units. So I think that's something we're gonna have to consider for sure. But when it comes to ranged units, I think she'll be very strong, as that new B skill really helps her out, and just having her like preferred special being a 2 cooldown, so she can constantly cycle it and special jump into it, right? So I think she'll be very strong there. When it comes to game modes, I expect to see Fjorm in a lot of places. Mostly in summer duels. I think that's where she's really going to show up, because she can't use this duo skill typically in either its offense or defense, right? Because obviously there's the duo's hindrance, and on defense you can't activate the skill, so it's not going to be really used there all that much. Now maybe she's just strong enough to use her on Ether 8's defense anyway, because she just doesn't die very easily against ranged threats. But considering that we have, like, let's say that Felix running around, right? Like, I think that it's not going to be the best to have such a unit that might be weak to melee units on Ether 8's defense. And then lastly, of course, she'll work in Arena because she's just a high-scoring armor, so she'll definitely be seeing her there as well. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video, should you pull. And when it comes to the pros, I think we definitely have some powerful units here. Fjorm is going to be a big deal in SD. I feel like that duo skill is really strong. It just really shuts down a lot of aggressive play against the foes. It can really protect you and let you do those really strong openings. Even though armors aren't in the best place right now, I think that Fjorm will definitely show up there and probably be one of the best saves, if not the best save. Probably her and Myrrh in most situations. And then also we have a Felicia, of course, and that Felicia is just really good because of that NCD support. Everything else in her kit is kind of like okay. If you're trying to use dragons, obviously she adds some extra bonus there, but other than that, I think it's mostly the NCD we're looking at. When it comes to the other units, I'm not all that impressed. Thea is just kind of like a side grade to Brow Catcher, so if you're already a Brow Catcher, you really don't need her. And so when it comes to cons, I will say that like this banner is powerful, but I don't know if it's gonna be like meta defining powerful. I still think the Brave banner is much more powerful overall. And that banner has 4 sparks for everyone, so if you haven't pulled that banner yet, I would definitely recommend pulling there instead. But if these are your favorite units, or if you just really want a powerful save for SD who's going to be frustrating, or if you just really love Brave Alphonse and you really want to give him a chance to use the NCD, I think pulling on this banner isn't the worst idea. You can get some good units here. But overall, we will have to test to see just how powerful Fjorm really is, and if she is like a meta swarping unit like Ascended Fjorm was before her. With that said, I'd love to hear from you now. What do you think of this banner? What do you think of these units? What do you think of the weird NCD support on Felicia? And do you think that Fjorm's duo skill is going to be an absolute annoyance? I do. As always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch y'all later with more 5 Heroes.